One aspect that has seemed to stay consistently involved throughout all of history is the connection between sports and politics. It is understandable that politics and sports cross paths at some point. It is a platform that most of the general public would pay attention to and that can be seen in the ancient times as well as current. Now more than ever, professional athletes are taking on the political world. The early Olympic competitions have shown the start of political involved sports. For one, since the beginning of sports, the competitor is always competing for something bigger than himself. To be on such a stage as the Olympics or Olympia, you are not just playing the sport for fun, you are now playing the sport for the honor of your state. According to some of the readings, Olympia was thought to be a place to solve disputes in the early times, but then Olympia became too bloody, so spectators called for places like Olympia to be associated with peace and unity. This allowed for the Olympic Games to continue even if the countries or states involved were at war. In the ancient times, most of the athletes competed in an honorable way, but there were some bad eggs that corrupted the games. They would corrupt the games, whether that was with bad sportsmanship or cheating.
168 Russian athletes are competing under a neutral flag at the Winter Olympics this year. Russia's official representation is banned at the Pyeongchang Games because of a large-scale doping scandal, so its competitors are formally titled Olympic Athlete from Russia. The developer of the Russian doping program, Dr. Grigory Rodoshenkov, spoke with Scott Pelley for Sunday's 60 Minutes to discuss how cheating still plagues the Games. He fled to the U.S. in 2015 with files on that program.
Do you believe the Olympics can ever be clean?
You could believe, but in fact, it's a human nature. It's our sins. It has nothing to do with sports. But there are 10% or 15% of people who are incorrigibles. You can do nothing. They are cheaters by their natures. Incorrigibles, 15%.
How many countries are doping?
20 plus.
20 plus.
The Russian doping scandal shows us that although war is not brought into the competition stage, that there are politics brought in. When one athlete is caught cheating, that gives their whole country a bad reputation. A great example of this is what we see in the Russian doping scandal. That was found at the 2012 Olympics, that there were a large amount of Russian team that tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. This went wild in the media and was spread everywhere as fast as it could be. Once it was in the papers, it was no longer the athletes of Russia, it had become Russia's doping scandal. As a result of this doping scandal, they were punished and banned from competing underneath their own flag for a while, pending the approval of the World Anti-Doping Agency. This created tension in the world of sports and politics because Russia is a powerhouse in many categories, so punishing them hard like this made a very big statement for everyone. Another example of politics in sports is in the 1936 Olympics. There was a lot of politics involved in this Olympics, most notably the politics involved Hitler. The documentary about the Olympics shows the propaganda associated with this Summer Olympics. There was a lot of pro-Hitler propaganda being pushed onto the spectators. There was some resistance though, as we can see that from Jesse Owens. Hitler wanted to show that he was a powerhouse, but when Jesse Owens won 4 gold medals and set 3 world records, it made Germany look weak in the athletic realm. Hitler was so disgusted that an African American had beat his country so many times that he refused to stand and acknowledge Jesse Owens and left the games. I believe that this is a kind of stepping stone to the next major political statement we see in athletics with the Black Power salute by Tommie Smith on the podium in 1968. In many of these cases, all of the political statements are stepping stones for bigger ones to come. Because once they realize what they can get away with protesting, they will continue to push the boundaries, creating even larger political statements. Athletes in the modern day have a platform that they have learned to use well. If you think about it, most people will know their favorite players' names and maybe even follow them on social media, but not even know the name of their senator. Currently, athletes have the attention on them and they are voicing their opinions. The most popular protest is one that Colin Kaepernick started, in kneeling for the national anthem in the NFL. The kneeling for the national anthem is meant to represent the fight of racial inequality and police brutality. Bringing politics into the NFL is a large stage of sports intersecting with politics because the NFL is one of the most watched programs within the United States. With social media, the news spreads like wildfire that there were that there was a protest within the NFL, and soon everyone was paying attention to what the athletes were doing. The protest did exactly what it was meant for and brought attention to the injustices that the football players were trying to showcase.
Colin Kaepernick's protest against racial injustice seems to be gaining traction.
The San Francisco 49ers quarterback knelt during the national anthem at the Niners LA Rams game on Monday night. Teammate Eric Reed joined him, and players on both teams raised fists in solidarity.
As we see in the news video, that is the fight that was going on in the NFL. But female athletes were fighting their own fight. Although female athletes fight the same fight that all athletes do, they have some extra protests along the way. For one, Title IX was created in 1972, which is not that long ago relatively. No longer were women going to be shot down or told no just because they were a woman. This was a huge in the world of sports, which had been mainly male-dominated before this. According to an article in the Washington Post, 295,000 girls played sports in high school before Title IX, and after Title IX, that number increased to 3.2 million. Also, there was no collegiate scholarship for women just 40 years ago, but now over 200,000 women play collegiately on an athletic scholarship. It took a lot of protests and time to get where they are now, and as a woman, I am very thankful to be where we are, but there is still a long way to go. Many are trying to put female athletes back in the shadows, but they are fighting back. They are fighting for equal pay as their counterparts. Women put in just as much work, and in case of the championship world soccer team, win more championships than their male counterparts, so this fight of equal pay has a deeper meaning than just pay. It is to finally be able to prove that women's athletics are just as tough and technical as males, even if that means in different ways. It does not have to be a show of brute strength in order to be considered a hard sport. Overall, politics have always been involved in sports, and I don't see that changing for a long time. The fight for equality in many realms has transpired through athletics, and we see that happening again with the fight for equality between men and women. As long as there are differences, there will be protests and politics involved with sports. The athletes of the time will continue to fight for what they believe is right.